we're ready to do the neck. I have 5 coats of lacquer on the body, and it's going to need more, so now I'm thinking more like 10. So while we're doing that, let's take care of this. I have taped off the fingerboard, and I've stuck little balls of tape into the truss rod hole as well as the tuning peg holes. So again, none of this is my idea. I got all this from Brad Angrove. Check his channel out. So he used a shop towel when he did this. I don't have anything like the self-confidence that he does, so I'm using a microfiber cloth. I have my oil here, so I guess it's the moment of truth. Shake bottle well before using. Okay. How do you define well? Well, my arm is starting to cramp, so I'm going to call that well. Take our little cap thingy off here. I said, clearly it has other ideas. You know what? That wasn't supposed to happen, but it all got on the tape. So let's go ahead, put some on the cloth, and let's do this. I'll start up here. Ooh, I can see the difference already. Okay. Get down into all the little creases, all the places that we had to sand down and shape here. And all the little birdies on Jaybird Street. No, that was something else. Wow. This is looking awesome. Okay, I'm going to set it on the tape part and let it dry, and we will check back and see how it's doing. Okay, it's about an hour later, and I cannot see any of the oil on this wood. This thing is drinking up this oil like it's never had any before. I was thinking maybe 2 coats would do it. Now I'm thinking maybe 4 or 5. So, let's go for coat number 2 and work from there. In the interim, I went back and re-watched Brad's video about doing this, as well as a couple of other videos about finishing the fretboard, because that's something that's going to have to be done too. So I haven't been idle while this stuff was drying, and I like to watch a variety of different luthier's videos since I started getting into this stuff, because everybody has a slightly different idea. And I have never had an original thought in my life. Every idea I've ever had has been basically a synthesis of other people's ideas. So yeah, I'm going to take what I can draw from all of these guys and put it together and come up with my own methods. That's what I do. My family calls me the figure outer because that's usually what I'm doing. I'm usually figuring out what's going on, what to do about it. My favorite question, in fact, the most important question in the world is why. If you know why something is happening, you can figure out what to do about it. If you know why something makes you happy, then you can figure out how to do more of it. And how to come up with more things that make you happy. If you know why somebody makes you want to put your foot down their throat, then you can do a much better job of avoiding them. And so it goes. I'm going over this another time just because this cloth, this microfiber cloth, is really soaking the oil up itself. So getting a good amount to come out onto the wood is proving to be a little more of a chore than I thought it was going to be. All right, we have a nice shine on it now. I don't know how well it shows. I have these lights set so that there would be more than just glare for you to look at. But now you can see the shine on there. We will let that soak probably overnight. It's getting kind of late. And see you back here soon with the next step. We'll see if it needs another coat or what we're going to do next. Because if it doesn't need another coat, then the next step is mounting the hardware. So stay tuned. Yeah, I couldn't stand it. As I look at this, it's finally starting to take on a little bit of a gloss. So I'm going to give it one more coat tonight, just because I can. So, let's do this. Got a nice fresh area of my cloth here. Get plenty of the oil in it. Put the top back on the oil because that stuff is not all that cheap. And here we go. Once again, this wood is drinking up this oil like it's a dry and thirsty land. It's amazing to me how much it's absorbing. Then again, as I said before, I'm also not sure how much of it's going into my cloth. But from what I can see, not that much, because I'm getting a nice layer here. Oh, that's pretty. One of my biggest problems, ongoing problems, when I do something like this, is I get cheap. And I start skimping on amounts. I'm thinking, you know, that stuff costs an extra 16 cents a pound for that, and my brain starts going like that. And the next thing you know, somewhere I'm doing a halfway job, and I'll tell you a little secret. It never works. So I have yet to have one of those turn out well. So if you're the type who's able to learn from other people's mistakes, yeah, learn from mine. Don't be a cheapskate. That is looking beautiful. I'm going to put just a little bit more here on this side of the headstock. Mostly because I can. There we go. All right. Now, I put a much thicker coat on this time than I did before. And I'm really going to be interested to see how this looks in the morning. So, stay tuned. We'll see you then. Now we're talking. I wound up putting a fourth coat on it, but as I hope you can see, we have a nice gloss, a nice shine on it now, which means it has soaked up as much oil as it wants to, and now we have a nice surface coat, including up here on the headstock. Now, if you hold it up and look at it in the light like that, it dried with several streaks. So I'm going to buff those out now. First, I'm going to take these plugs out. We don't need them anymore. And I really don't feel like buffing masking tape. So, you know, people look at me funny when I always have a pen, but it has so many uses. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to polish it. I got this buffing wheel for my drill. I wanted to get the disc kind so I could do it like this, but the only one of those that my favorite hardware store had was about this big and didn't have the mandrel in the center. I would have to buy that separately. So I went with what they had. Let's see what we get. The first thing I notice is we get little pieces of cotton flying all over the place. I have a feeling this buffing wheel isn't going to last that long. Let's take a look. It made a new set of streaks. Well, that was certainly effective. So, next, let's try a soft cloth. See if we can get rid of those. I really don't want to use sandpaper on this. That's better. Everything is going with the grain, so it looks nice. Okay. These edges, I'm just going to wipe down with the cloth, I think. I don't really think they need the buffing. They don't have streaks and stuff like that, so. In fact, it came out really good. Even over here, they came out really good. Even over here, the places where I had to sand it, yeah, that took the oil very nicely. And we have a nice, even coat and color there. So I'm very pleased with that. Go down here, do the same with the heel. Just give it a good brushing. And these sides over here. How are we looking? Okay, yeah, we got a nice shine. All right. Now I'm having second thoughts about using this wheel on the rest of it, because I really don't like what it did to that headstock. Let's test it here, where nobody will ever see it once we get the guitar together, and see how it looks on this open wood. I'm trying to use a fairly light touch. That's actually not bad. Okay, now let's take a look at the rest of the neck. Honestly, sorry I keep lifting it out of the camera. Honestly, looking at, I don't think it needs any polishing. I don't think it needs any buffing or anything. It looks fine just the way it is. In fact, it looks exactly the way I want it. This side of the headstock needs some work because I've got some really funny streaks there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that with the buffer. Going with the grain. No, Mr. Cotton Fuzz, you can't stay. Still got some spots here that look funny. That's better. I am not in my element here, as you may be able to tell. The reason I'm so wanting to do this is, well, one, I'm just naturally crazy about my wife, but also, why not? There is nothing I can do here that is going to cost me much of anything, because this thing was found in an attic, and the main thing I've invested in it is time. So even if I mess it up, so what? I'll go find another one. So let's take the tape off. And yeah, this may take a little bit, so tell you what, let's speed this up and add a little music for fun. You know, I hope whoever invented masking tape never had to work another day in their life. So, now I'm going to use the buffer on this fingerboard because it's got all the tape residue on it, so I'm going to see if I can brush it off with this thing. So, here goes a grand experiment. right, we can go faster. Okay. Note to self, that didn't work. I got to show this up close. Whoa. We just had a power outage. So, I hope you can see that. There's little bits of the cotton from the wheel stuck in the tape glue. So, note to self, that did not work. I'm going to pause until the power comes back on. Well, as you can see, as I mentioned before, that didn't work. So, I've got some cleaner here. I've got my sponge. So, let's get this tape residue off of here. The power was off, best I could tell, for about 3 hours. So, yeah, during that time, I went and ran some errands. The most notable of which was I found one last little part that I need for this girl. See, over on this side, as you probably know, we have some holes. This fits into a pocket on the body, and then 4 bolts or screws go through there to hold it. What we were missing is a metal plate actually goes over the back of the body to hold the screws so they don't pull through when you get the thrashing around. Now, here's the problem. These holes aren't a normal size. Aren't spaced a normal distance. Almost everybody who does this, who makes these, follows what's called a fender standard, and their holes and the neck plate, as it's called, are a certain size. Not this girl. She had to be different. She had to have one that measures completely different from everybody else. And I have been all over the Tacoma area, and I've been all over online, and you could swear such a thing doesn't exist. I put in a neck plate with the hole dimensions that I need, and I get nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so I went to one of my favorite pawn shops thinking, well, if I can find a clunky old guitar that has the right size plate, I can cannibalize it and part it out. Yeah, they had one. This guitar had 2 great big gouges in the fingerboard right here. The 2nd fret looked like somebody had taken a chisel or something and dug a hole in it. And it looked like they started to do it on the 3rd fret. The tuning pegs were rusted and unturnable. It didn't have a price tag on it, so I took it to the counter and I said, what would you let, this doesn't have a price tag, what would you let it go for? She took it back to some guy, and then she came back out and she said, I'll give it to you for 50 bucks. And I said, like hell you will. I mean, no, ma'am, you won't. Because, yeah, I might give you 20 for this thing, the condition it's in. But 50? Never mind. And I went and put it back. And that was the only thing in the whole city that I could find. But then I remembered there's a little guitar store, probably about 10 miles from here, just a guy basically working out of his house. And that was where I bought that pickup that I showed you way back when. And I thought, I wonder if he has something. So, While I was waiting for the power to come back on, I went over to his place and told him what I needed. He didn't bat an eye. He said, I've got a whole bunch of neck plates. Let me go get some and you can look. First one he brought out was exactly what I needed. There it is right there. $5. So that's 1/10 what they wanted to charge me for that guitar, and probably just about what the guitar was actually worth. And so this fits the holes perfectly. This will hold our guitar together very nicely. I may have to etch the Irving name in there, but I'm still trying to come up with a logo. So, yeah. Anybody has any ideas, serious ones, not goofy, let me know. To be honest, I have thought seriously about going with a Comic Sans font just to make people angry. Just because people make fun of it. And if this was my guitar, I just might do that. But it isn't. So I won't. Alright. Our fretboard is cleaned up. My bench is a mess. Yeah, this surface I'm using is actually my keyboard bench. It works. And it works very nicely. So now, I will need, this thing is as dry as the rest of it was. So I will need to treat that fingerboard with something. I don't know what yet. The conventional wisdom is lemon oil, but yeah, from what people say, lemon oil is horrible stuff. And I'd rather avoid horrible stuff if I can. I want to do some research and find out if I can just treat it with this same teak oil, if that will work. So we'll be following up with that later on. Right now, since the neck is finished, completed, all done except for treating the fingerboard, which can be done anytime, let's put the hardware on.